Hi, my name is Josh Lockey, Training Evangelist here at QuoteWerks, and today I'll be showing you how to create a layout from scratch using the QuoteWerks Web Layout Designer. Layout Designer is accessed by going to Setup and then clicking on Layout Designer. We're going to be creating a layout from scratch, so we're going to click on the plus button. We're going to choose Quote as our empty layout, and then we're going to give the layout a name. When we click OK, this opens an empty layout in the Layout Designer, and this is where we will be building our layout. Before we get started, I just want to adjust some document properties. So we're going to click on Document Properties, and we're going to make the header 240 pixels instead of just 80 to give us some additional room to work with as we're building our layout. The first step we're going to take here in building our layout today is by inserting our logo. So we're going to drag the image object into the Layout Designer, and we're going to resize it to the size that we want our logo to be. You'll notice that when we dragged that image into the Layout Editor, an Object Explorer entry has been created, and when we selected that image, the object properties for the image showed up here on the right. In order to make it so that our logo shows there where that particular box is, we're going to click on Choose Field and call upon a field from the QuoteWerks system, which is app.companylogo, which is going to be the logo that you have stored within QuoteWerks. We're going to go ahead and insert that as our source, and if we preview the document, you'll see that the QuoteWerks logo is being printed on the layout. Now, another piece of information that we likely want to include in a quote is going to be the quote number and the date of the quote. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a document info section here where we could put that information. And the way we're going to be organizing information in our layout today is by utilizing frames. Frames are just ways in which you can organize like-minded information into a similar frame so that you can drag it around and also make changes to all of the objects in that frame at once. So we're going to drag a frame into the document. We're going to resize it a little bit here. And we are going to name this frame Doc Info. And what we're going to do in this particular frame is we're going to include the quote number as well as the document date. And we're going to do that using a table. So we're going to drag and drop the table into that field. And we're going to resize the table a little bit so that it fits within our frame. Now, this area is going to consist of two components, data labels as well as data fields that are pulling from the QuoteWerks document. So we're going to first create our data labels, and we're going to start by putting in quote number. And then we're going to put in date. So next to quote number, we're going to come over into the object properties for that table cell and click Choose Field to choose the field that we want to pull from the QuoteWerks system. And in this case, it's going to be Doc Number or Doc No. So we'll click on that. And then for date, it's going to be Doc Date. So now if we preview the document, you're going to see not only do we have our logo, but we also have our quote number and our date, and those are being pulled from the QuoteWerks system. Now we want to include some information about who we're preparing this particular quote for, and we're going to do that by creating a prepared for section. And again, we're going to utilize a frame in order to make that section. So we're going to drag our frame into the document. We're going to resize it a little bit, and then we're going to start populating our frame. But before we do, we're going to give it a label. And this is going to be prepared for. And now we're going to bring in text to create our label for this section. It's going to be prepared for. And then we're going to pull in additional text objects to actually populate this section with data from the QuoteWerks system. Now, I've just brought in a text object here, but I happen to know that I want to include 3 different text fields here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this by hitting Control on my keyboard, hitting C and then V. And you can see I can very quickly get a copy of that field and just drag it where I need it. So you can see that we have our prepared for section. Now all we need to do is populate that with some different fields. So for our first field, we're going to come over, click on the object. That selects it in the Object Explorer and opens the object's properties. We're going to choose a field. In this case, it's going to be our sold to company. Next, we're going to do sold to contact. And then next, we're going to do sold to full address. So now you can see if we preview the document, not only do we have our logo and our doc info, but we also have our prepared for information as well. The next section we're going to want to include here is going to be the prepared by section, so information about the sales rep. We're going to also create a frame for that. So we're going to drag our frame into our document, resize it a bit, and go through the same process as we did for prepared for. Just realigning the frame a little bit here. And the label here is going to be prepared by. Now, just like before, we're going to want to include some text boxes in here. And these are going to be text boxes for the data fields for our prepared by information, or in this case, our sales rep information. So now that we have those text boxes in there, we need to populate them with some data fields. So the first one we're going to do is sales rep full name. The next one is going to be sales rep title. And then the last one here is going to be sales rep full address. Okay, so now we have our logo, our doc info, our prepared for, prepared by. One thing that I don't think we did is we didn't name our prepared by frame. It's always a good idea just to make sure that you know what each section is. So now we have, you can see over here on the document or object explorer, we have our prepared for, prepared by, as well as our doc info section. The next section that we're going to want to create here, or next frame that we're going to want to create, is going to be for our sale info. So we're going to drag another frame into the document. And we're going to span this one across the width of the document. Now for our sale info, what we want to do is include a couple different fields, and we're going to organize those in a table. So we're going to drag our table into our section here, or into our frame, I should say. And we'll give our frame a name. This is going to be our sale info section, or frame, And what we're going to do here is we're going to create a couple different columns. In this case, we have 2 columns, but we want 3 of them. So we will now take those columns and distribute them across the width of the editor. Great. So there's 3 different fields that we want to display here. The first one is going to be our PO number. We're just creating the data labels now for those. So PO number, payment terms, and expiration date. These are all data labels, not data fields. So they're static. Okay, so now that we have our data labels, we can insert our data fields. So for PO number, you can just type in PO number and find sold to PO number. Payment terms is going to pull from the terms field, so dh.terms, and then expiration date, we'll type dh.expiration date here. So now we have our logo, our doc info, prepared for, prepared by, as well as our sale info here. If we preview the document, you'll see that we have all of those being printed on the document, and those fields that are data fields are being pulled from QuoteWerks as well. So all great information. We've got our header now built out. Now it's time to build out our section, which will include all of our product information. To display product information, we're going to be utilizing the section object. So we're going to take our section object here and drag it down into the body of our layout. And you'll see that the section has 2 different areas. One is the header, and one is the section line items body. So what we're going to do here is create a header, which is going to be our different headings. And then the body is going to be what is going to cycle through our different line types and format those appropriately on the layout. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Object Explorer, choose the section line items header, and we're going to adjust this to be 20 in height, just to accommodate the headings that we're going to be using. So I'm going to create these headings using text objects. So I'm going to drag in text objects here. And what we're going to do is copy and paste them just to be able to quickly insert new ones. And what we're doing here is we're going to be putting in our headings, which will include quantity, description, price, and extended price. We're just making sure that these are appropriately sized here. And we are good to go. So now we can start populating those with our actual data fields. So we'll start with quantity. These are actually data labels, excuse me. Quantity, description, unit price, and extended price. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and toggle on borders for these as well, as we'll have borders on our other products as well. All right. So now that we have our labels, we can now start to go in and create the different frames for how we're going to be printing each of our different line types. And we're going to start with our heading line type. And the way that we're going to create that frame is we're going to drag our frame down into the section line item's body. We'll span it across the entire width of the editor, and we will also insert a table into that frame. But before we do, we'll give the frame a name, and we want this to be the row that will be used to display our headings. So we'll include headings as our label here, and then we'll bring that table in and drop it into that frame. Now it's important when you are inserting a table into a frame that you see that the table itself is nested under the frame itself. If for some reason it's not, you might want to just drag around the table a little bit to make sure that it is. So you see, it just came out of the frame there, and we want it to be in the frame, so you can see that we now just created that table so that it's in that headings frame. Important to do because the printf statements that we'll be creating won't work the way you want them to if it's not nested like that. So now that we have that set up, we actually want to remove the header from our table. And what we want to do here again is to create a heading formatting. So anytime we have a header line item, that line item will be presented with this formatting. And the way that we want to have this formatted is so that the description is just across pretty much the entire width of the editor here. So we're going to go ahead and insert our description field. So we're going to click on the cell that we want to insert that into and choose field, and we'll choose description here. And we'll also go ahead and bold that because we want our heading to be in bold. So now we have our field here. The other thing that we want to do is create what we call a printf statement, and what that's going to do is make sure that this particular row is only going to be used when we have a heading line type. So we're going to click on to headings frame. We're going to go into print settings, and before we choose our printf statement, we just want to make sure that remove when empty and shrink to constant height are both selected. Now we're going to start creating our printf statement, and to do that we're going to choose field and we're going to call upon a line type. So in this case we want only line types of heading to use as formatting. So we'll go and select line type, 2 equal signs, we'll choose a field again, and there are some constants that we have built into the system that help you to call out the different line types. So in this case we'll just search for heading, and we have our con.type heading constant that we can use here. So now if we preview the document, we should see that everything that we created before is printing, and our heading line is printing here as well, utilizing the formatting that we just created. Now, when you're creating layouts, you can have any number of different line types and have them broken out into different frames in order for them to print differently. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to just use headings, subtotals, and products to show you how 3 different types of line types might be displayed. But just know that you can really expand this to as many as you might like. So now that we have our heading line type set up here for our layout, we're now going to go and create our subtotal frame. So we're going to insert the frame into the document, bring it right below our heading frame, and resize it. And then we're also going to bring in our table as well. But before we bring in our table, we're just going to give this frame a name. Always a good best practice. So this is going to be subtotals. And now we're going to bring in that table. Again, making sure that the table is nested below the subtotals frame. We're going to toggle the header. And for subtotal, we're going to want a large description and then the extended price to print. We're just going to adjust the sizing of our cells here. And then we're going to put in our different fields. So again, description is going to be in this area. And we'll change the formatting to align it to the right, and we'll bold it. And then we want our extended price. And we'll bold that as well. Now, another thing that we want to do, because the extended price field is in fact a currency field, is we're going to want to go down to our print settings and change the pattern so that it's showing the currency symbol in front of the number. And we're going to also want to go in to our subtotals area and create that printf statement that we did with our heading line, except this time we're going to call upon a different line type. We're going to select remove when empty and shrink the content height as we did before, and then we're going to select choose field. In this case, again, we're going to call upon a line type. Line type equals, and in this case it's going to be subtotal. So con.type subtotal. If we preview the document now, you'll see now we have our subtotal line printing as well as our optional items heading printing as well. So now that we have those two printed, the last one that we're going to want to do for the purposes of this demonstration is the product frame. And we're going to kind of go through the same process that we have already. Inserting our frame, resizing it, giving it a name, in this case, products. We're going to insert our table, toggle off the header. In this case, we're going to want 4 columns to match all of our 4 headings. We're going to resize those to the size of our headings. And we are going to insert our fields. So for quantity, this will be quantity QTY base. For description, this is going to be description. For unit price, it's unit price. And for extended price, it's going to be extended price. Now again, we would just want to make sure that we go into our unit price and extended price fields and choose the currency pattern. And now we're going to go to our products frame, remove when empty, shrink to content height, and we're going to create our printf statement. Again, we're going to call upon line type equals, and in this case, it's going to be product or service, so con.type product service. So now if we preview the document, not only do we have our optional header, do we have our subtotal, but we also have all of our products printing as well. This is starting to really look like a quote. There's just one other section that I wanted to include in here to kind of round everything out, and that's the totals section. And we're going to create a frame here down in the body of our document, which is going to be used for that. So we're going to put that here. And then we're going to bring in a table that's going to be used for our totals. Now we want 3 different fields. So we're going to put our content rows to 2 because we're going to utilize the header. And the 3 fields that we want to include in here are going to be subtotal, sales tax, and total. We'll just go ahead and bold all those. So for subtotal, we're going to type in subtotal and pull in dh.subtotal. For sales tax, we're going to type in tax and search for total tax. And for total, we're going to search for grand total. And we'll go ahead and bold that grand total as well. So now if we preview the document, you can see we've got every component that we might want on this particular quote: our logo, the doc info, prepared for, prepared by, sale info, our product info, pulling out the different line types and printing them as they should be based on our settings, and then we've got our total section down here at the bottom. So as you can see, you can create a layout relatively quickly in the Layout Designer, and all the different tools that you have here are pretty intuitive. If you have any questions or you want to learn more, feel free to reach out to the team. It's 407-248-1481.